Hello, hello, beautiful soul. I pray that you are doing well. Thank you for joining me for this live broadcast. I'm taking questions and answering them live. And today we're specifically going to be talking about how can we love ourselves more? How can we get past victim mentality and imposter syndrome? These were some of the leftover questions from my previous live, which was on Monday. And I'm just happy to be back. I really want to address this. Now, obviously, I can't do everything because this 300-page book is really the handbook for developing self-love and getting rid of limiting beliefs. But we're going to tackle a couple of things today so that you can confidently express yourself authentically and actually feel good in your own skin and finally feel happy and free. All right? So if you happen to struggle with feelings of unworthiness, shame, not enoughness, and you want a way out of all of that darkness, then stick with me. So welcome to my friends on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and if you're watching on the replay, thank you very much. Just type in the chat #replay. If you have not yet met me, I am Dr. Andrea Pennington. I am an integrative physician, Chief Wellness Officer for Innate Vitality, and the founder of the Real Self-Love Movement. If you've seen me online or on the TEDx stage or on TV, then you probably already know that I am passionate about helping you build resilience, self-love, overcoming trauma, and holistic healing. And I'm a little bit of a neuroscience nerd. All right, so on Monday, I asked this question, what holds you back? So if you missed that, definitely check out the replay. It's on all of my social channels, except Instagram. But it was really good. So if you go to andreapennington.com, you will be able to see the replay from that first Q&A session. It really was a good one. And towards the end, there were these questions coming in around self-worth and self-love. And so let's just get into it. How would you know if you don't love yourself? Now, I don't know if that sounds like kind of a silly question, but I honestly went through decades of my life not knowing that I did not love myself. These words were not even a part of my vocabulary at the time. But through the course of getting to the point of near burnout, dealing with depression and anxiety, I recognized what a lot of other people have been telling me is that I didn't recognize that my achievements were great. I didn't imagine that I was great unless I was achieving. I recently posted about this on Thrive Global. There are a lot of executives, and in particular, the article is about female executives, who are challenged right now with imposter syndrome. And usually when we are under stress, all of those little lingering doubts kind of come forward. And in my case, I was running a big medical practice in the US. I was the on-air talent for Discovery Channel. I had just published a book. I was traveling all around North America. And I got to the point of the stress, the overwhelm, and the burnout was getting to me. And I got to a point where I just didn't even want my life. I was not happy, and I didn't want my life as it was then. And it didn't even occur to me until someone said, "Girl, you just need to love yourself." And it was kind of like, what? Can anybody else relate to that? So I want to just maybe read to you a little tiny bit from the Real Self-Love Handbook. Because ultimately, what we all want to get to is unconditional self-acceptance and self-love. And so what is the opposite of self-acceptance, and how does that manifest? Well, according to the handbook, self-loathing, self-hatred, self-denial, and self-suppression are the opposite of healthy self-acceptance. The result of remaining in these self-deflating states includes low self-esteem, depression, denying yourself pleasure, not engaging in certain activities, hiding, fear of freely expressing yourself, fear of rejection, not living authentically, being fake, or trying to mold yourself into some imaginary ideal and not speaking your truth. Now, I don't know how many of those you can check off, but I had a whole lot of them. So being told that I should love myself was a huge wake-up call. And so I want you to sort of think about these things in the grand concept of, if I asked you today, do you love yourself? What would you say? Would you be able to say, heck yeah, I love myself. I am the bomb.com, or not? I'm just going to check for any messages coming in. Salut. Hello, anyone else who's tuning in? Thank you for being here. So this was a big issue in my own life, and it's been something that I've dealt with a lot of my clients. And so how do we even start to hate ourselves? I felt like before I give you the $1 million answer on how to love yourself, one big piece of how I break things down in this book, the book is in 3 sections, and the first part is all about learning who you really are. Because we need to distinguish who you really are versus who you have been programmed to be. Because you were not born hating yourself. You were not born thinking that you needed to do something to get attention or that you needed to behave a certain way. You learn these things over time. We don't all walk around feeling like a fraud. We had certain experiences that created that situation for us. Make sense? And so what I want to give you is just a reminder of how things used to be. When you were in your mother's womb, unless she was completely stressed or there was trauma in the pregnancy, while you were in utero, as we say, you existed in this perfect state where all of your needs were met. It was the right temperature, you had food, nutrition coming at you. You didn't have to want for anything in the most cases of pregnancy. And as soon as you were born, all babies are born expecting and accepting unconditional love. Babies are just expecting that you're just going to love on us. You're going to give us what we need. We don't have any concept of not being worthy of love, attention, affection, being taken care of and nurtured. We learn those things. Now, the reason that that's important for you to just distinguish straight up is because we have to unravel the programming. Because you weren't born hating yourself. So where did you take on that program or that belief that you were unlovable? So does this make sense? I see that I see some of you are chiming in on YouTube, on LinkedIn, Facebook. Awesome. Thank you for being here. So I'm teasing this out because I want you to recognize that there is a part of you, the most pure part of you still exists. The you that was born into this world deserving, expecting and accepting unconditional love still exists. Meaning all of the programming and the stuff that's been put on you can actually be removed, and you can return to this state of trusting yourself, of loving yourself, of expressing yourself as you want to. And so in the beginning of the book, I ask you to really do this investigation to see who are you really versus who have you been programmed to be. And so, all right, how would you recognize that you're not being your authentic self? Well, I'm going to go back to the book on this one. There's, it's quite a long section, so I'm not going to read all of it. But one of the keys to unconditional self-acceptance, well, there's 3. There is present moment mindful awareness, meaning this moment, not based on the past. compassion, and authentic living. If you wanted to get to complete, total, unconditional self-acceptance and self-love, those are the three things you need. Mindful, present moment awareness, compassion, and authentic living. All right, so if that's what we need for self-love, we've got to look at how are we evaluating ourselves? Because if you are evaluating yourself based on past stuff, whatever said stuff could be, mistakes you've made, things that you failed at, whatever, then you're not presently focused, all right? And so one way you can figure that out, this is in the second part of the book on loving who you are, is looking at the shoulds, okay? So I actually say it, where did all this should come from? Stop shoulding on yourself. And so basically what you want to ask yourself is, are you aware of any shoulds? These are these dreaded feelings of commitment or requirement. Are they floating around in your head? Things like, I should be further along in my career. I should already be married with children. I should be living on my own. So these are the kind of should statements that so many people have rattling around in their head, and it takes up a lot of mental energy. And so mindfulness and being present moment focused is really about having this flexible mental state where we're making new distinctions based in the present. So as we look at where all of the shoulds come from, I really want you to think through, are there shoulds that are burdening you? And I know I always say this, but if you look at the word should in English, it's the root of the word shoulders. And when we are carrying all of these shoulds, it weighs us down. It feels like a burden. And so that's one way that you can kind of tease out, am I living based on who I am today, based on my values today, or am I driven by these shoulds? And the shoulds could have come from your family of origin, the culture or the religion that you grew up in. Certainly the media plays a role in it for most people. And so what I invite you to do is go through this process of self-investigation to really see who am I really? And if you were able to strip away all of the labels, you are not your job, you are not your title, you are not the amount of money you have in the bank account, you are not, whether you're married or unmarried, none of that is who you really are. You do play these different roles. There are different functions. There are different hats we wear. But that is not who you are. At your core, you are the essence. You are this soulful being that animates this body to go and do all of those things. Does that make sense? So this was a big question that came up. And if you are curious or you'd like to get some more information, then definitely check out the book. But I wanted to share one other thing with you, and hopefully all of my tech will work appropriately. So this is also in the book, but I want you to think through, if you today in the present wanted to change something in the future, what would you do? Now for most of us, we think, well, I should basically change my actions or, change my speech. Right? So that could be you. It could be that you're thinking, all right, well, I need to just act like a winner or act like I'm confident, or you adopt the speech patterns of other people. But if you really were looking closely, those actions and your speech, underneath it, there's certain decisions. There are decisions that drive our behaviors. And underneath those decisions, there's these thoughts. All sorts of thoughts about our place in the world, what we're worthy of, what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad. And underneath that are feelings. The feeling of safety or not safety, confidence or not confidence, for example. And underneath those feelings are the beliefs. And this is really where we really need to focus. Because focusing on actions will get you into this state of, okay, I'm going to go try to get that new job, or I'm going to model someone else's behavior. But if you do that and the beliefs in your subconscious mind don't match up, you will not be successful. And it's the same thing with speech. We can recite affirmations all day long, but if they don't line up with our fundamental beliefs, we won't get very far. So sometimes you think, well, I just have to think positive. And that works for some people if you're naturally optimistic. But if you still have these underlying beliefs that you're not worthy, or that you deserve to fail, or to be ill, as one of our Instagram fam sent over, then it's not going to work for you. Make sense? So the beliefs are where we really need to focus. Now, what drives our beliefs? Our identity. So we can say that if you are coming from the ego, which is all about survival, the ego is all about, I got to get mine, I got to fit in, I need to be accepted, approved of, all of that. That's survival based. Now, you can't get rid of the ego. It is a construct of the mind. It is just part of the package when you become human. You can't get rid of it. But all of that survival-based reaction, if you identify with your job, with your income, with your roles, with this body, you will always be limited to going back to that survival-based thinking. But if your identity is aligned with your authentic self, then it's your spiritual DNA that will drive you, that drives your beliefs. And so in one of my other videos on Christmas Day, I talked about values. Our values, we may learn some of that from family and society, but the things that really drive you, like a value for cleanliness, a value on your time, such that you want people to show up when they say they're going to show up. A value could be honesty, integrity. These values are what drive us and motivate our actions and our behaviors. And there are some underlying beliefs that those values influence. Similarly, our character and anything that our soul may have inherited. So these are the things I want you to sort of think through. And again, if you are interested to get a little bit more information on this whole cornerstone process and how you can build authentic self-love, then I invite you to check out the Real Self-Love Handbook. It's also available on audiobook and Kindle, paperback, hardcover, all of the above. So does this make sense to you? Does anyone else have a question about that? Ultimately, we have got to be really mindful of those beliefs. And so one of the things that we have to do is kind of investigate, where did all these beliefs come from? And if they are no longer serving us, we need to get rid of them. And that's what sections 2 and 3 of the Real Self-Love Handbook are all about. It's about going in and identifying those limiting beliefs. And so if you feel, one of our InstaFam members sent me this message saying, I'm dealing with an illness and I feel like I brought it on myself. Like I deserve this. And that brings up ideas around victim mentality. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily what's going on in his case, but victim mentality is something that we take on over time. And it may actually be that you have been victimized. You've had things happen to you repeatedly, because that's the key here. Usually, unless it was some major catastrophe or major trauma that you endured as a young person, usually the things that get installed as lasting limiting beliefs, they were repeated. It wasn't that you were, scolded only once, or you were told that, bad things happen to you based on, your scores at school. Those things had to be repeated and repeated and repeated. And so victim mentality is not natural and normal. It is something that we learn. Fortunately, it's something that we can unlearn as well. So I will remind you, if you haven't seen it already, if you go to AndreaPennington.com, you will see that you can download and access this victim mentality life writing course. One of the key things that you'll find in the Real Self-Love Handbook and in all of my work is there's an ability for us to go in and kind of clean house. So, for example, if you know that you've taken on one of these beliefs, like, I mean, I've shared this so many times, but maybe I'll use a different case study. So I mentioned that I just published this article on Thrive Global, the top 5 reasons that female executives are now dealing with imposter syndrome as a result of COVID. And one of the ladies that I was talking to last month when we were writing this up, she said, I feel so exposed that now I can't hide. So what she mentioned was she found ways to kind of blend in and fit in at work. She found ways to be in a meeting to kind of either say something smart or ask a question so that she could kind of deflect attention away from her. But now that we're remote working, where people have got all sorts of Zoom conferences and all of these things, she said, I feel so exposed because as soon as I turn on that camera, I can't hide or blend in to the meeting anymore. And as we started to unravel that, I said, well, when was the first time you felt the need to hide? Because babies aren't born with this reflex that I need to hide. I mean, we come out butt naked, ready to be seen and loved. And so when you'll see in our life writing program, I ask you to do this timeline of life events. And in this timeline of life events, you are able to identify, it may be several events, when you actually experience that feeling. When was the first time you felt the need to hide? When was the first time you felt that you were not good enough? When was the first time you felt or believed that you didn't deserve happiness or love? You can use this process for unraveling the source of fear, procrastination, all sorts of regrets. All of these things are typically reactions. So we experience things, we react to it, and because if our brains want to make meaning out of the things that we experience, our brain will start to encode memories and associate different events or people, scents, as in smells, like things will impact us and it will trigger us to have that same feeling of fear or not enoughness or shame or guilt, right? And so when you go through this timeline of life events, you can actually see where it first happened. And so then the next thing that we do in our life writing process is we get it out. One way that we do that is through writing. So you literally get some writing prompts to write from the standpoint of you as an adult, or you can do it from the aspect of your younger self to kind of unravel that. Does that make sense? Okay, so I know I've been going on and on. I'm glad that this is helpful. Constance, thank you for being here. And Princess K, thank you as well. I'm glad that this is helpful. If you have some questions, feel free to type them into the chat and I will get to you. So, Shaf Garcia, your question, what daily practice do I recommend for 2021? Ooh, just one practice? That's a tough one for me. Well, I would say self-reflection. I'm going to just give us a broad umbrella term. I know most of my followers, you thought I was going to say meditation, right? Well, self-reflection can be done in meditation, which is hugely powerful for really identifying who we really are, identifying the different voices in our head, getting them out, or at least seeing them for what they are. But by saying self-reflection, I can include meditation, and that can include other things like yoga or Tai Chi or Qigong, because it's also a very introspective thing. And the other piece of what you can do in that self-reflection time is journaling. It's something that I do every single day, sometimes twice a day, morning and evening. But the number one daily practice I would recommend for 2021 is self-reflection. So you can do that sitting silently. I know meditation is a challenge for some people. I've got several free guided meditations on my website that you can check out that will help you. And again, for those people who feel like you just can't sit still, guided meditations also work. All right? All right, so someone from LinkedIn has asked a question. All of this makes sense, but is the authentic self related to values or what else? How do we find our authentic self? I'd say honesty and integrity is paramount, but you're thinking career. Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to bring up another slide if I can. I say if I can, which is a big if. I'm trying to run multiple tech things at the same time. This is going to be a little bit of a busy slide, so I apologize. In the Real Self-Love Handbook, the first section of this book is all about awakening to who you really are. So if you wanted to identify who you are really versus who you've been programmed to be, this is one of the things that we do. So one is looking at a family history. This is just also medical stuff, so you can skip some of it. I've already talked about the shoulds, the religious beliefs. Are you an optimist or pessimist? Now this may seem like kind of, I don't know, esoteric, but when you start to write these down, and there's prompts in the book, when you start to write these things down, you start to recognize, oh, I'm doing just what my mother did, or just what my aunt did, versus what's really you. Now, when we talk about what is the authentic self, this spiritual DNA, there are several exercises. So if you end up doing one of the life writing programs that's free on my website, it will take you through some of this. But the first thing is the vitality test. If you go to vitalitytest.com, you can take it for free. It was created by the lovely Nick Haynes from the Five Institute in the UK. So go to either fiveinstitute.com or thevitalitytest.com. So I don't know if you knew this, but I'm also an acupuncturist. And the art and the science of Chinese medicine is quite lovely. In fact, we all are influenced by these 5 elements. So whether that's wood, I got a lot of wood, a lot of water, fire, earth, metal, all of these energies influence us. And it just depends on what we've been born with. And here's the thing, when you can recognize that these are just fundamental parts of your authentic self, this can lead you to a lot greater self-acceptance. Now, I will just admit, I have always been one of these people. One of my mentors called it shiny penny syndrome, shiny object syndrome. Other people called it ADD. It's like, dang, Andrea, why can't you just do one thing and only one thing? Because I'd be inspired by this, inspired by that. I'd want to do this, I'd want to do that. I'd make all these big plans. I get visions. And I was shamed by parents, school people, other colleagues. Definitely when I got into the media, people couldn't figure me out. They couldn't put me into one box. But when I really looked at the 5 elements of Chinese philosophy and understood what I was born with, instead of trying to hide it or fight it, now I can work with it and flow with it. So I highly recommend that you take the vitality test and find out which of the 5 elements. This will help you uncover your own spiritual DNA of what is authentically you. Now, also mentioned in the book is the VIA, the Values in Action Survey. It's from the University of Pennsylvania, the good positive psychology folks. The VIA will help you identify your top 5 signature strengths. And these are the character traits that make you who you are. Some of it may have been inherited, but it really is truly, naturally you. And yes, our environment and what we experience in life can push us to develop some of those traits more than others. But I do firmly believe that that's part of your authentic self. In the Real Self-Love Handbook, I do have a complete survey for you to look at your values, look at your limiting beliefs. I teach you how to make a personal success mantra. And in the, 3 Keys to Becoming a Hero. This is another free life writing program. I have an exercise in there that comes directly from the book that will teach you how to identify some of the positive traits, because I know we all know how to pick out the negative traits, the things we want to shift and the things that... But part of embracing yourself unconditionally, yes, you're going to embrace your flaws and all, but we also want to shine a light on those qualities of ourselves that we may not naturally celebrate or acknowledge. I found this to be the case with a lot of the people who were suffering with imposter syndrome. If I wish I could put that up on the screen, but if you could see this article about these 5 kind of characteristics, one of the things that people with imposter syndrome routinely say is that they're always striving to be better, to do more, to get higher marks, to be more certified, more, qualified. And what they fail to do is to recognize their achievements and their expertise. And so in the moment, they're so kind of narrowly focused, got blinders on, only looking at all the things that they haven't done or haven't completed or that are not perfect, that they drive themselves into the ground. And so one of the things that we do in this 3 Keys to Becoming the Hero of Your Life is to start looking at the experiences where we are using our traits naturally and our talents in an authentic way that brings us joy, so that we can start to set our lives up to do more of that. All right, does that make sense? So I just wanted to share with you, since this is the last time I'll be going live before 2021, I wanted to answer these few questions that were left over this week, and to let you know that next week I have a very special interview with a very dear friend and colleague, Siv Harstad from Norway. So next Wednesday at this same time, 5 p.m. for us here in Europe, we are going to be exploring how she recovered from burnout, climbed Mount Everest, and is now on a crazy mission that I can't wait to tell you about. And she's starting a new project, a new movement called Dare to Dream Big. So I invite you to join me next week for that. And if you haven't already signed up, I have extended the early discount for the Best You Yet workshop, which happens on January 9th and 23rd. This is a live workshop that I'm hosting on Zoom, where we will spend a few hours each day going through my Best You Yet system. Now, this is a process that I have been doing for, I think, 11 years now. And literally, the number one question I get time and again, besides the self-love one, is how do you do it all? Because I am a single parent living in a foreign country without any family here, running a global business, raising a daughter, staying healthy, and teaching and giving away content for free and publishing books and doing TED Talks. And so this is the question that always comes up. How do you do it all? And I shared on Monday during the Q&A that there was a time when I was doing too much and I almost burnt out. And there was a very helpful therapist that taught me, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I was taking on too many projects just because I could, or I felt obligated because certain people needed help or they didn't have the skills. But since I have been using the Best Year Yet system, which is based on a book from Jenny Ditzler called Best Year Yet, I've adapted it as a therapist and healer. I don't want you to just have a good year. I want you to be the best you possible. So the Best You Yet workshop, 2 days. The first day, we go through the 10 questions from Jenny's book on how to identify all of the things that you're not so happy with from this year, the excuses, the underlying beliefs, the limiting beliefs that may have led to those disappointments, but also all of the things that you are happy that you accomplished, even the small things, so that we can acknowledge them and identify the underlying beliefs and paradigms that allowed those successes to be there. Then we also look at your values. So we spend a good deal of time looking at your values and how they show up in all the roles you play in life. And this is just one of these kind of 360-degree looks at who you are and how you show up in the world. Because you might be rocking it in business, but your personal life is a mess. Or you might be a really great parent, but your self-care is a mess, right? So all of these different parts of our lives really need to be in flow and in harmony with our values. And so that's what we do on day 1. And then on day 2, on January 23rd in this workshop, I will share with you my personal productivity system that allows me to schedule my time, my days, my weeks, my months, my quarters, and my whole year to advance me toward the goals that I set, which are meaningful. So I don't believe in New Year's resolutions. I've said this before. I feel like resolutions are when you resolve to do something, you're forced to do something, or you just give in. And that doesn't have a really swaggy energy. Instead, I would like you to make choices and set goals that light you up, that come from a place of passion because they're so aligned with who you really are and the values that you share. And so this productivity system, including the accountability checks that are built into it, will really help you accomplish more. So if that's been an issue for you, that maybe you were like me, you say yes to a lot of things, or you start a lot of projects and then they don't get done, and you see them kind of draining your energy, then this workshop is for you. So just visit AndreaPennington.com and you'll see how you can click to join us for this workshop. So thank you for being with me today. It is lovely to have connected with you on this very last time of 2020, the last live session. You can learn more about my books and my private coaching and consulting at AndreaPennington.com. And if you are struggling with burnout, you can also check out InnateVitality.com. Innate Vitality is the company that I started a couple of years ago to help people overcome stress and burnout. And we have a lot of great programs that are coming up this year in partnership with a very dear friend and colleague, Helena Philipson from Unlearn, the consultancy in Denmark. So if health and stress and holistic healing are issues for you, definitely check out Innate Vitality. All right? Thank you all for being here. I wish you a wonderful, wonderful, peaceful end of 2020, wherever you are in the world, whether you're in lockdown or not. Just know that I am sending you so much love from the south of France. So until I see you again in 2021, please remember that you are a gift to the world. So share your presence with passion. Much love.